This subject draws a lot of controversy and allegations over Shri Ram by the people. People say that Shri Ram, he just didn't insult Sita, he insulted the whole woman folk. People say that Shri Ram was a male chauvinist, he was an anti-feminist. It is very important, brothers and sisters, that whenever we hear an allegation, we should also hear the words of the one who is being alleged. We should actually do a complete character sketch of the one who is being alleged. Otherwise, any judgment we reach to before doing that will be just a prejudice. Under the leadership of the God incarnate, the Lord of the universe, Lord Ramchandra, the army of the insignificant ones, as considered by the society, the underprivileged ones, but who have got the hand of God over their heads. This army defeated the mighty army of Ravan. So, after Ravan was killed, the whole demon army has been killed, and there are piles and heaps of dead bodies all around in the battlefield. The queens of Ravan came to the battlefield and they started lamenting very badly. Mandodari, who was the chief queen of Ravan all her life, she used to counsel Ravan. She was very pure at heart. Somewhere deep down she knew that Shri Ram is God. So she used to counsel Ravan that leave Sita and surrender to Shri Ram, but he never used to understand. And the same thing, she is beating her head on the frame of Ravan and she's saying the same thing. I told you so many times, but you could never accept the supremacy of Shri Ram. You always thought that you are the supreme power, but it was not the case. Vibhishan conducts the last rite of Ravan, and after that Vibhishan was coronated as the king of Lanka. And then Shri Ram tells Vibhishan and Hanuman that go and get Sita to the encampment. So both the commanders, they go to the Ashok Grove and they get Sita with due respect in a palanquin. Sita is come to the encampment where all the Vanas are there. The demons who were not killed and they surrendered before Shri Ram, they have turned pure of character now. They are also there in the encampment. So there is a huge population, huge assembly waiting to have the divine audience of Sita. And when Sita comes, Shri Ram speaks to her in very gentle tone. Shri Ram calls her Bhadre. Bhadre means virtuous lady. So Shri Ram says, "Oh virtuous lady, before everyone today, I want to say that you were abducted by the real Ravan, the extremely real Ravan. When you were in a very vulnerable state, you were all alone in the hermitage. He abducted you and he kept you captivated in Lanka. But now I have freed you, O blessed lady. I have freed you from the clutches of Ravan. I have slain that Ravan. All the devilish forces I have slain, devastated them to dust." And then Shri Ram relates to Sita the whereabouts, the events that occurred during the war, who all actually helped Shri Ram, all the Vanas, the commanders. Shri Ram apprises Sita of everything. At the same moment, the Valmiki Ramayana says that Shri Ram's heart was sinking because he was thinking that the world is going to point out fingers over Sita now. The world is going to ask that Sita has actually stayed in the house of Ravan for more than a year. So how is Shri Ram taking her back? As a noble king, he should not. This was not Shri Ram's perspective, but this was the perspective of the world that Shri Ram was presuming. So Rishi Valmiki says that Shri Ram's heart was sinking at this time. Brothers and sisters, this whole episode of fire test, Agni Pariksha, in Valmiki Ramayana, it comes in 4 chapters. It is there mentioned in the Lankakanda from chapter number 115 to 118. So these are 4 consecutive chapters, and if you study it deeply, you shall understand that they are divided into 3 major portions. So today I shall keep it before you in these 3 portions only. So this what I just told you was the part 1 of this 3 portions, where Shri Ram sees Sita. He speaks to her in a very gentle tone and his heart is sinking. This is part 1. Now we come to part 2 of the Valmiki Ramayana, and it says that Shri Ram's tone actually changed. He suddenly started speaking harsh words to Sita. After the initial dialogue he had with Sita, he said to Sita that I have won this war and I have freed you, and now there is no more purpose that you can serve for me. You have actually stayed in the house of Ravan. I cannot believe that Ravan could have stopped himself from coming closer to you. That real man who was full of lust, he would not have been able to control himself. So, I cannot take you back into my life now. I free you today. Now you are free from my side. You can go anywhere in the world. So, brothers and sisters, these were most cruel, rude and harsh words from Shri Ram, and Shri Ram silenced after that. Sita was really confused and Sita was really terrified hearing such words. Just a moment back, Shri Ram was talking so sweetly, and just at this moment he has become so harsh with her. Tears rolled down Sita's eyes. In such a humble tone, she says to Shri Ram, how can you even think like that for me? And then she says, you know that I was in a vulnerable condition. When Ravan held my arms, he forced me. It was not by my choice. By my choice, my mind, my soul, myself, I have given it only to you, not to anyone else. Please don't take me wrong, O Ram. But Shri Ram is silent today. Dear congregation, this subject draws a lot of controversy and allegations over Shri Ram by the people. People say that Shri Ram, he just didn't insult Sita, he insulted the whole woman folk. People say that Shri Ram was a male chauvinist, he was an anti-feminist. But brothers and sisters, I will keep 3 points before you today. My first point is that Shri Ram was actually a propounder of respect for women. And my second point is Shri Ram is Maryada Purushottam. He is epitome of righteousness in action. And in the third point, I shall render before you the exact sequence of the events that occurred in this episode of Agni Pariksha. And through these 3 points, you will get a fair idea of the whole thing that happened, and you will be your judge yourselves to decide what is right and what is wrong. It is very important, brothers and sisters, that whenever we hear an allegation, we should also hear the words of the one who is being alleged. We should actually do a complete character sketch of the one who is being alleged. Otherwise, any judgment we reach to before doing that will be just a prejudice. And we don't have to be prejudicial in this. We have to look into both the parties, right? So, Shri Ram as propounder of respect for women. In all these days, we heard so many episodes. Shri Ram, at just one ordinance of her stepmother that go to the forest, he left the kingdom and he comes to the forest. That is respect for women. Shri Ram denies the promiscuous proposal of Shrupnakha, that is commitment to his wife. Shri Ram wails and laments for Sita when she is abducted by Ravan, that is his love for his wife. When in the forest once Shri Ram and Sita were sitting, the son of deity Indra, he came impersonated as a crow and he pierced Sita's feet with his beak, and he hurt Sita. At that time Shri Ram made him one-eyed. So we have a very long list of divine sports that Shri Ram conducted, where Shri Ram actually expressed his respect for women. And I would say Shabri, who was an underprivileged woman, who was actually treated an outcast by others, Shri Ram expressed respect for that lady as well. So Shri Ram is a propounder of respect for women. The same person, can he be so harsh to his own wife and say such rude words? And if such words are mentioned in the scripture, then there must be some reason behind it that we have to catch, right? So my second point is Shri Ram is Maryada Purushottam. Shri Ram, in all of his roles and characters, he stayed within the Maryada of the relationship. What do we understand by the word Maryada? I'll share a wisdom bite rendered to us by Divya Guru Shri Ashutosh Maharaj. Once I got this fortunate chance to sit at the lotus feet of our Divya Guru, and I asked him, Maharaj, what does Maryada actually mean? So, coming to our levels, Maharaj Shri gives examples so that we understand. Maharaj said that, have you seen the traffic lights? I said, yes. He said, what happens when some traffic lights are not working? I said, there is a chaos on the roads because traffic is jamming in from all the directions. Maharaj said, yes, exactly. When traffic lights are not working, that's Maryada ka ulanghan. Because the traffic lights is a Maryada. It's a boundary. It's a limitation. If we stay within that limitation, then we move very swiftly. And if we transgress that limitation, that boundary, that Maryada, then we create a chaos. And same happens in our social and cultural lives as well. As long as we follow the social and the cultural norms given to us by our elders, by our ancestors, everything moves fine. But the moment we leave all that, it impacts the cultural fabric of the society, and that's what we see in our society today. And then Shri Ashutosh Maharaj said, licentiousness should not be mistaken as freedom. Freedom is one different thing, but misusing your freedom and becoming licentious, indulging in bad things on the name of freedom of expression, that actually makes you licentious. So that is actually Maryada ka ulanghan. And Shri Ram, contrary to this, he has always stayed within the boundaries of Maryada in all his relations. He didn't even question Kekeyi that how can you give me such an order? You are not the king of the country. When he went to the exile, he was given these protocols by Kekeyi that he will be following celibacy, he will not be entering the towns and the cities, he will be eating roots and fruits. So he abided by all that. He didn't enter the boundaries of Shringverpur, not even Lanka, not even Kishkinda. Sita got pregnant after Shri Ram came, after both of them came from exile, and they again started staying in Ayodhya. And when Lakshman had become unconscious during the war, the scripture says that Shri Ram, his heart melted so much that he said that I'm not going to live without Lakshman. I can't live without him. And for him, I can leave the war, I can leave everything. So he is 100% in each of his relations, whether it is with his wife, whether it is with mother, father, brother, or anyone. He is Maryada Purushottam, epitome of righteousness and perfection. So how can such a man be so rude and shrewd and harsh to Sita? And if he is being so, there must be some reason. What is that reason? We have to decode that. Now what happens? Now I shall take you through the sequence of the whole Agni Pariksha. I've told you the first part and I was telling you the second part. In the second part we heard that Shri Ram becomes rude to Sita. And after that, when Sita expresses her concerns, even then Shri Ram is silent. He has zipped his lips. He's not speaking anything. So Sita comes to know that now I cannot expect anything from Shri Ram. And Sita tells Lakshman that set a pyre for me, because as I have been insulted by my husband in front of the whole assembly, I cannot live anymore. I will give up my life into the fire. Now Lakshman, he doesn't do anything without the instructions of Shri Ram. So the moment Sita says this to Lakshman, Lakshman sees towards Shri Ram and Shri Ram gives him a signal through his eyes only that okay, set the pyre. Now here is a hint. Why is Shri Ram so willing for the pyre to be set? We'll understand this. So Lakshman sets the pyre and Sita, she folds her hand, joins her hands, she takes a round of the pyre as a mark of respect and she calls all the deities, the Vayu, the wind, the Agni, the water, the sun, the moon, all the directions, the Dikpals, the Lokpals. She calls all the deities and she says that I am going to enter into the fire. If I am pure, don't let me burn. And you be the proof of my chastity, my purity. And saying thus, Sita actually enters into the fire. And the Valmiki Ramayana says as ghee, when you put ghee, clarified butter into the yagya fire, it just seeps down. In the same way, Sita actually seeped down into the fire. At that time, the demons who were there, the Vanas, the Rikshas, they started shrieking in pain. But Shri Ram is all silent. At this very moment, the deities, the Lokpals, the Dikpals, all of them, they boarded their vehicles and they came to that assembly because Sita had called them. They all came there and representing them, the deity Brahma, he says to Shri Ram, what is wrong with you, O Lord of the universe? You are God. You know Sita is pure. What are you doing today? How can you be so rude? But Shri Ram is silent. He is not breaking his silence at any cost. So Brahmadev realizes that Shri Ram is not going to break his silence. So now he, representing all the deities, he prays to the god of fire that, oh fire, you support Sita. Don't let her burn. You get her back. And the moment this prayer was made, right then, it is mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana, the god of fire appeared from the fire and in his lap was goddess Sita in the form of goddess Lakshmi, all pure. And god of fire declared aloud, addressing Shri Ram, O Shri Ram, O Lord of the universe, here is your chaste wife. She is all pure. Pure of body, pure of mind, pure of eyes, pure of thought. She has not committed any sin. Take her back. And right then, this was the moment when Shri Ram broke his silence. And what Shri Ram said, this is actually the third part of this Agni Pariksha episode. We shall listen to it in the exact words of Shri Ram in Sanskrit verses in the form of a lyrical, and I shall do commentary in between so that you understand these verses. Come, let's listen in the direct words of Shri Ram.
Avashyam chape lokeshu सीता पावनमर्हति दीर्घकालोषिता ह्ययं रावणान्तपुरे शुभा.
Shri Ram says that I know that Sita is pure, but the three worlds, they cannot read my mind. So, to prove Sita's purity before the three worlds, it was really important to take a test of Sita. This what I have actually done is I have taken a test of Sita.
बालिशो वत कामात्मा रामो दशरथात्मजः इति वक्ष्यति माम लोको जानकीम विशोध्यहि.
Shri Ram says, this world is so gross and it understands things at the gross level only. So this test was so important. If I had not taken this test, this world had called me a mere fool and a man full of lust.
अनन्या हृदयां सीतां मच्चित्ता परिरक्षिणी अहमप्यवगच्छामि मैथिलीं जनकात्मजाम्.
And now Shri Ram expresses aloud. He says, I know Sita is pure. She is pure, absolutely pure. And she always has her mind fixed in me. And she always abides by my will.
Imamapi vishalakshi rakshitam स्वयं तेजसा रावणो नातिवर्तेत वेलामेव महोदधिः.
And then Shri Ram says, Sita, who had stayed in the house of Ravan for a long time, Sita is so pure and protected by her own divine effulgence that Ravan could not have come closer to her. I have strong faith in Sita.
Pratyayartham tu lokanam trayanam satya sanshrayah upekshe chapi vaidehi praveshantim hutashanam.
Shri Ram says, you all were looking at me why I didn't stop Sita from entering into the funeral pyre. It was for this reason, because I wanted her purity to have been proven before the three worlds. That's the reason I didn't stop her from entering into the pyre.
Nahi shakta sudushtatma manasapihi मैथिलीं प्रदर्शितुं प्राप्यामा दीप्तामग्निशिखामिव.
Shri Ram says that Sita's character is like the flaming tongue of a sun, self-effulgent and so pure that Ravan could not even in her mind touch her, come closer to her.
Neyamarhati vaiklavyam ravanantah pure sati अनन्या हि मया सीता भास्करस्य प्रभा यथा.
Shri Ram says that Sita is a sati Sadhvi. Sita is inseparable from me, just like the sunlight is inseparable from the sun. So how could Ravan in any case bother her or torture her?
Vishuddhatrishu lokeshu Maithili janakatmaja na vihatum maya shakya kirtiratma vatayatha.
And lastly, Shri Ram says, the way intelligent people can never leave wisdom, in the same way I can never leave Sita. Ram can never leave Sita. So brothers and sisters, Shri Ram actually broke his silence and he sang the glory of Sita, the glory of his wife before the three worlds. Now, this is such a sad story of our society, that the society, it understates, it subdues the part 1 and part 3 of this Agni Pariksha episode, and it just highlights and I would say exploits the second part of this Agni Pariksha episode. Because people want to create hate for Shri Ram in others' hearts. This is our society today. But brothers and sisters, this is actually a divine act that was played by Lord Ram and Sita. Now we come to Ramcharitmanas. In Ramcharitmanas, there is twice mention of Agni Pariksha episode. One is in Aranyakanda and second is in Lankakanda. So in Aranyakanda, we find a pretext of this Agni Pariksha where Shri Ram categorically tells Sita, this is at that time when Ravan was planning the abduction of Sita in Lanka and he was discussing the plan with Maharaj. At the same moment, I told you while narrating this episode, at the same moment, Shri Ram and Sita were discussing abduction of the atrocities of Ravan. So what Shri Ram said to Sita was, Tum pavak mahu karahu nivasa, jau lagi karu nisachar nasa. O Sita, you are such a pious lady. You have always abided by my will. Now I request you that you reside in the fire element till the time I destroy the whole of demon clan, and till then you create a reflection of yours and you leave it behind. Shri Ram says, I am going to do a Nar Leela. I need your support for that. Nar Leela means divine act. So brothers and sisters, Sita actually created her clone. And the real Sita, it got submitted to the fire element of the environment. We'll come to this science in a while. So this clone was created by Sita, and the Sita that was abducted by Ravan, it was not actually the original Sita. It was the clone Sita, the reflection Sita. So now in Lankakanda of Ramcharitmanas, the similar episode has been mentioned that Shri Ram talks to Sita in a very gentle tone, then suddenly he becomes harsh, and then Sita asks for fire, and she enters into the fire, and then the god of fire comes with Sita in her lap. So all this is mentioned in Ramcharitmanas as well. And one more thing is mentioned. It says, Pratibimb aru lokik kalank prachand pavak mahu jare. That means when Sita entered into the fire, at that time the Pratibimb and the Lokik Kalank both got burnt in that fire. Two things got burnt into the fire. One is the Pratibimb Sita. Tulsi Das ji here himself is saying that was a reflection Sita. That was a clone of Sita, Pratibimb Sita, and Lokik Kalank. The allegations, all that stains that have been put on her character, all that got burnt to ashes in that fire. This is what Ramcharitmanas tells us. So, brothers and sisters, this actually is a very inspiring episode for all of us. It gives us inspiration at 3 different levels. One is the social level. How? Shri Ram is the king of the whole earth now. So whatever he does is going to be followed by his subjects, all the countries of the world. So everybody is not a higher consciousness like Shri Ram, not so evolved like Shri Ram, and people think in very gross terms. So if Shri Ram doesn't take a test of Sita and he accepts Sita back to his life without any test, then people will do promiscuous acts and they will say, if Ram could accept his spouse, then why can't you do that? So men and women alike, both will do it. So in order to stop that, in order to prevent that situation, Shri Ram took a test of Sita. This was his ideal behavior as a king. Now, at the spiritual level, Shri Ram is God incarnate. He is Lord of the universe. Whenever God incarnates, he comes into our life as a spiritual master, as a guru. He plays the role of a guru. Because how is he going to interact with the people? Not as God, but as a spiritual master. So, it's a law of spirituality and it's a law of world as well, that when you have to progress on any path, you give tests and then you climb the ladder of success, right? What happens when we are in school? We give tests every year and we get on to the next class. Likewise, it happens in the spiritual domain as well. God takes tests of his devotees, and Sita was one of her kinds of devotees. So she had given a very tough test. And then third inspiration we get at the political level. Brothers and sisters, we all like democracy, right? We don't like monarchs, we don't like feudalism. But when Shri Ram is acting in a very democratic manner, we have problems with that. Shri Ram is already anticipating that if Sita, if I take her back, then I will face some political problems as well. People will say that he's not a right king. So to avoid that and to acknowledge the concerns of each and every fellow of his praja, of his subjects, he has taken this test. So these three inspirations we get from this episode. So brothers and sisters, this is one allegation that was put on Shri Ram. There is one more allegation which is being populated on the social media these days, that Shri Ram said to Sita that the way the oblations of yajna, when a dog licks it, it becomes redundant for use. In the same manner, since you have stayed in the house of Ravan, you are unfit for use by me. These are the words that people allege Shri Ram that he said to Sita. And they say that it is written in Mahabharata. Well, brothers and sisters, it is written in Mahabharata. It is written in the second book of Mahabharata, in the portion called Ramopakhyan. But here I would like to share something very important with you. I've noted down this verse. This verse is from Anukramanika Parv of Mahabharata, and this verse says, Ekang Shat Sahastrang Tu Mayoktang Vai Nibodhata. This means Vyas ji, who is the author of Mahabharata, he himself writes in this Anukramanika Parv that when I wrote Mahabharata, I wrote 1 lakh verses in Mahabharata. But brothers and sisters, the Mahabharata that we have today in our society, you know how many verses it has? 107,390. So my question is, from where have these 7,390 verses come to this Mahabharata? The original Mahabharata had an index of 120 chapters. But the Mahabharata that we have today, it has an index of 270 chapters. 150 chapters have been added to this Mahabharata which we read today. From where have these chapters come? We have the answer. The answer is written in Garud Puran. It's like, Daityaha sarve vipra kuleshu bhutva krite yuge bharate shat sahastra yam nishkasya kanshi channav nimitanang niveshanang tatra kurvanti nityam. This means that in the Kalyug, men of real character, men of bad character will get birth in the houses of men of wisdom, and they will infiltrate into the Mahabharata. They will change many verses in the Mahabharata. They will add many verses in the Mahabharata, and they will create wrong meanings of these verses. It has been categorically mentioned in Garud Puran. And sage Tulsidas also says in Uttarkand, Kalimal grasai dharm sab lupt bhaye sad granth dambin nijmati kalpi kari pragat kiye bahupant. That in the Kalyug, a time will come when people will disregard the scriptures. They will have their own fake interpretations of the scriptures, and they will have their new paths of religion that they will tell to the society. And that is what we are going through today. Brothers and sisters, this wisdom that I just shared with you, it has been rendered to us by our revered spiritual master Divya Guru Shri Ashutosh Maharaj ji. And Maharaj ji tells us that there is a big conspiracy behind all this. It is a conspiracy that was conducted by the British when they came to India. When they saw that Indian scriptures are so rich in values, in character, in meaning, in content, they got really insecure, because they would see that whenever the young people from Britain would come to India, they would become followers of Indians. They would get impressed by the Indian wisdom to an extent that they would start loving Indian scriptures. So that is the reason the libraries of Nalanda and Takshashila were burnt by them. And the British government, they deployed many of the personnel to destroy our scriptures. Two names I will take today, Babington Macaulay and Max Muller. Babington Macaulay, he said, we must create a class of men in India who are Indian in blood and color, but British in taste, opinion, word and intellect. And that is what we see today. We live in this country, but we are followers of English trends. We feel pride in speaking English. We feel pride in wearing English clothes, eating English food. I am speaking in English because it's a vulnerable situation of the society. We have to reach out to the maximum of the people, rendering the wisdom of Sri Ashutosh Maharaj ji and the essence of the scriptures. So that is the reason I am speaking in English, but it's a vulnerability of mine. I would love to speak in Hindi. I would love to speak in Sanskrit. So, brothers and sisters, Max Muller, he was given 4 euros to misinterpret each page of Vedas. If in today's time we calculate, it comes to be 1,000 euros for misinterpreting one page of Vedas. So this was his plan, and he said, this addition of mine and the translation of the Vedas will hereafter tell to a great extent on the fate of India and on the growth of millions of souls in that country. It is the root of their religion, and to show them what that root is, I feel sure the only way of uprooting that has sprung from it during the last 3,000 years. So this was their whole conspiracy. And what we read in Mahabharata, that Shri Ram compared Sita with that licking of dog thing, that is sheer nonsense, and we outrightly reject it. We don't accept it. Shri Ram can never say so. These are the misinterpreted things. These are the additions made in the Mahabharata. We don't endorse that. So I don't need to give any clarification on that. Now coming to my last point, brothers and sisters. We also asked about the science of how Sita made her own clone. We asked this science to our revered Gurudev, Shri Ashutosh Maharaj. And he explains it beautifully. His wisdom is documented in the form of Shri Ashutosh Vachnamrit in our monthly magazine, which is called Akhand Gyan magazine. So whenever Shri Ashutosh Maharaj addresses seekers from the stage, those wisdom, they are jotted down and they are written, they are composed in the form of articles in this series called Shri Ashutosh Vachnamrit. I am going to render that same wisdom before you today, which Maharaj shared in his direct words. Maharaj says, there is this writer, he says in this book is written, those what we consider as miracles also fulfill within the parameters of universal laws. It is just that we don't know those high-level universal laws. And then Maharaj rendered to us 3 verses from Rigveda. The first verse says that there is fire in each and every particle of the universe, and there is fire in each and every organ of the human body. The second verse says, this fire was verily known to the ancients, the self-realized master of the ancient times. This fire is verily known to the present day rishis, the present day self-realized masters as well. And this fire is also known to the divine beings of today's time. And in the third verse, it is mentioned that Shri Ashutosh Maharaj renders that this fire is none other than the eternal consciousness. And this fire has 3 traits. Its first trait is it integrates. Its second trait is it preserves. And its third trait is it disintegrates. And then Shri Ashutosh Maharaj rendered the whole phenomena that was undertaken by Sita for making a clone of her own body. Shri Ashutosh Maharaj then tells us that Sita actually disintegrated the atoms of her body, and she kept these particles preserved in the fire element, and from the environment she recollected atoms and integrated them with the help of the fire element into a clone, a new body. That was called the reflection of Sita. So, because of this reason, it was important that Sita should walk through the fire. Why I said that there is a hint when Shri Ram hinted, he gave a signal to Lakshman that okay, set the fire. Because the reflection, it had to be burned, and the real Sita that was surrendered in the fire element, that had to come out. Shri Ram wanted her real Sita back. So the reflection got burned in the fire and the true Sita came out of the fire. Because I told you, the reflection Sita that just went inside like ghee. So she got submerged in the fire. And the god of fire, the deity of fire came with a new Sita. So that was the true Sita. So the Sita that was abducted by Ravan, that was touched by Ravan, she was just a reflection of Sita. Now this is the deep science of our Indian culture. Brothers and sisters, Shri Ashutosh Maharaji also says that Sita was so powerful that the demons like Shatmukh Ravan, whom even Ram could not defeat and kill, they were killed by Sita. Sita is the mother of the universe. If Shri Ram is the father of the universe, Sita is the mother of the universe. If Shri Ram is the God consciousness, Sita is his divine potential. She is the energy. So we'll hail the glory of Sita today in this premises, because a lot has been said about Sita and we have to create some positive vibrations.
Avashyam chape lokeshu Sita pavanamarhate Dirgha kaloshita heyam Ravananta pure shubha